Commander Vex-9 clicked his mandibles in what passed for amusement among his species. The Galactic Defense Council meeting had been running for 3 standard hours, and the entertainment value was, well, let's just say he'd seen more excitement watching paint dry on his home world of Kethvar. So, he drawled, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for addressing particularly slow younglings, let me get this straight. The humans want to join our little club? Admiral Zorf, a towering insectoid from the Mantis cluster, buzzed his wings irritably. That's correct, Commander. They've submitted their application along with this. He gestured toward the center of the conference table with one of his 4 arms. There, sitting innocuously on the polished metal surface, was what appeared to be a child's plaything. A small, rectangular device with a trigger mechanism and a peculiar orange tip. It looked about as threatening as a newborn glimmerworm. Oh my stars and nebulas, wheezed General Crox, his bulbous head shaking with barely contained laughter. They can't be serious. That's their weapon demonstration? Dr. Maya Vasquez, the human representative, sat perfectly still in her chair. Her dark eyes moved slowly around the room, taking in each sneering face, each dismissive gesture. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. Gentlemen, she said quietly, I assure you, we are entirely serious. Serious? Vex-9's laugh was like grinding gears. My dear primitive biped, that looks like something our larvae used during their first combat training. And even then, only the especially dim ones. The room erupted in various alien versions of laughter. Zorfa's wings created a sound like static electricity. Crox's wheezing became so intense that his breathing apparatus had to compensate. Even the usually stoic reptilian delegate from Scales Minor let out what might have been a chuckle. Doctor. Vasquez waited. She had all the time in the universe. Her patience was legendary among human diplomatic circles, though her colleagues often whispered that it was less patience and more the calm of a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Are you quite finished? She asked, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a blade through silk. The laughter died down, though several delegates continued to make amused clicking and chittering sounds. Now then, she continued, standing slowly, I believe the standard procedure for weapons evaluation is a practical demonstration, is that correct? Vex-9 wiped what passed for tears from his optical sensors. Oh, absolutely. By all means, let's see what your little toy can do. I'm sure it'll be memorable. Excellent. Dr. Vasquez picked up the device, handling it with the casual familiarity of someone who had used such tools many times before. Shall we adjourn to the testing range? The Galactic Defense Council's testing facility was impressive, even by the standards of beings who regularly blew up small moons for entertainment. The range stretched for several kilometers, with targets of varying materials and defensive capabilities arranged at different distances. Standard protocol, announced Range Master Thek, a 6-armed being whose species had evolved specifically for weapons testing. Begin with the closest target, work your way back. Each target represents increasing levels of defensive technology used by potential enemies of the Galactic Alliance. Target 1 sat a mere 50 meters away. It was constructed of standard plasteel, the basic armor material used by most civilian spacecraft. Child's play for any serious weapon. Oh, this should be good, muttered Captain Yix from the observation deck. His species, the Thoraxians, were renowned for their military prowess. They had conquered 17 star systems before joining the Alliance, and their weapons were feared across 3 galactic arms. Watching a human with what appeared to be a toy gun was, in his opinion, comedy gold. Doctor. Vasquez raised the device, sighted down what appeared to be a completely inadequate targeting system, and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. The silence stretched like taffy in a neutron star's gravity well. Is it supposed to do something? Asked General Crox, his voice dripping with false concern. Doctor. Vasquez smiled. Patience, General. Some of our weapons require a moment to, what's the technical term, oh yes, to spool up. She pressed something on the side of the device. A small light appeared, glowing a soft blue. "Ah," said Vex-9, nodding sagely, "a charging mechanism. How quaint. Most of our weapons don't require a warm-up period. But I suppose when you're working with primitive technology, indeed," Dr. Vasquez agreed pleasantly. "We do things a bit differently." She raised the weapon again. This time, when she pulled the trigger, something did happen. A projectile emerged from the barrel. It was small, roughly spherical, and appeared to be made of some kind of foam material. It traveled at what could generously be called a leisurely pace, arcing through the air like a particularly unmotivated comet. The various alien delegates watched in fascination as the projectile approached the target. It struck the plasteel with a soft, thunk sound and bounced off. The foam ball rolled to a stop at the base of the target. The silence that followed was so complete that you could have heard a quantum particle sneeze. Then, like a dam bursting, the laughter began. "Oh! Oh my!" Vex-9 was doubled over, his exoskeleton clicking rapidly. That was absolutely precious. It bounces. Their weapon bounces off the target. I haven't seen anything that pathetic since the Gelon incident of 2387, wheezed Admiral Zorf. At least the Gelons had the excuse of being completely insane. Dr. Vasquez waited for the laughter to die down. Her expression remained perfectly neutral, though close observers might have noticed that her smile had grown slightly wider. "Gentlemen," she said eventually, "I believe there may have been a slight miscalibration in the weapon's targeting system. Perhaps we could try Target 2. Target 2 was positioned at 100 meters. It was constructed of hardened duranium, the standard material for military vehicle armor. Still relatively basic, but significantly tougher than plasteel." "Oh, by all means," gasped Captain Yix, still wiping moisture from his optical organs. "Let's see if your bouncy ball can make it that far." Dr. Vasquez made some adjustments to the device, then raised it again. The same blue light appeared, perhaps glowing slightly brighter this time. She fired, another foam projectile emerged, this one traveling at roughly the same speed as before. The aliens had stopped laughing now, watching with the kind of morbid fascination usually reserved for stellar collapse events. The projectile struck Target 2 with the same soft thunk and, predictably, bounced off. 2 for 2, announced General Crox with the enthusiasm of a sports commentator. The human foam ball remains undefeated against stationary targets. "Perhaps," suggested Vex-9 with mock seriousness, "the weapon is designed for psychological warfare?" The enemy laughs themselves to death. More laughter filled the observation deck. Several delegates were now recording the proceedings for what they undoubtedly planned to share as comedy material across the galactic networks. Dr. Vasquez, meanwhile, was examining her weapon with a slight frown. Still not quite right. The atmospheric pressure here is slightly different from Earth standard. Let me make another adjustment." She pressed several buttons in sequence, and the blue light began to pulse rhythmically. "Target 3, she asked politely. Target 3 was positioned at 200 meters. It was made of combat-grade titanium composite, the same material used in the hull plating of Alliance warships. This was where serious weapons testing typically began." "Oh, absolutely," said Vex-9, gesturing grandly. "Don't let us stop you from this magnificent display of human military prowess." Dr. Vasquez raised the weapon, took careful aim, and fired. This time, something was different. The projectile that emerged was still foam, still roughly spherical, but it was moving faster. Much faster. And as it traveled through the air, keen-eyed observers might have noticed that it was changing. The foam seemed to be expanding, becoming less dense, more dispersed. By the time it reached Target 3, it had transformed into something that looked more like a small cloud than a solid projectile. It struck the titanium composite target and seemed to splash against it harmlessly. "Well," said Admiral Zorf, his wings folding in disappointment, "that was actually less impressive than the first two. At least those had the decency to bounce." But Dr. Vasquez was smiling now, really smiling, and there was something in that expression that made the more perceptive delegates suddenly feel slightly uneasy. "I think," she said quietly, "that one might have worked better than you realize." Before anyone could ask what she meant, Target 3 exploded, not the dramatic, fire and brimstone explosion of conventional weapons. This was something far stranger. The titanium composite target simply came apart. It dissolved, collapsed, disintegrated into its component molecules and scattered on the wind like dust. The observation deck fell silent again, but this silence was different from before. This wasn't the silence of anticipation or amusement. This was the silence of beings suddenly realizing they might have made a terrible mistake. "What?" General Crox's voice was barely a whisper. "What just happened?" Dr. Vasquez was checking her weapon again, making small adjustments with the casual air of someone fine-tuning a musical instrument. "Ah," she said conversationally, "there we go. Molecular disassembly achieved. The targeting system is now properly calibrated for your atmospheric conditions." She looked up at the observation deck, where several dozen of the galaxy's most experienced military commanders were staring at her with expressions ranging from confusion to the first, faint stirrings of alarm. "Target 4, she asked pleasantly. Target 4 was a full kilometer away and constructed of neutronium-infused battle steel, the most advanced defensive material known to galactic science. It was designed to withstand direct hits from plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and even focused gravitational waves. No1 answered her immediately. They were all still staring at the space where Target 3 used to be. Finally, Range Master Thek found his voice. That is, how did, neutronium composite is designed to resist molecular disruption fields. It should be impossible to, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine, Dr. Vasquez said cheerfully. After all, it's just a toy gun, right? She raised the weapon. The blue light was now pulsing rapidly, and there was a soft humming sound coming from the device, like the purr of some vast, invisible cat. She fired. The projectile that emerged this time bore no resemblance to foam. It was a sphere of pure energy, crackling with forces that made the observation deck's instruments go haywire. It traveled at a significant fraction of light speed, covering the kilometer distance in microseconds. When it struck Target 4, reality hiccuped. There was no explosion this time. No dramatic disintegration. The neutronium battle steel target simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a monument to advanced galactic engineering. The next moment, there was empty space, as if the target had never existed at all. The silence stretched for long, long moments. "Sweet screaming nebulas," whispered Captain Yix. "What kind of weapon is that?" Dr. Vasquez was making more adjustments to her device, apparently unsatisfied with some aspect of its performance. "This is what we call a Nerf gun," she said conversationally. "It's a popular children's toy on Earth. This particular model is the Nerf Hyperion 3000, though I've made some modifications." "Modifications?" Vex 9's voice was strangled. "Oh yes. Standard Nerf guns only fire foam darts at about 70 feet per second. Perfectly safe for children. But with a few tweaks to the compression system, some improvements to the projectile design, and a small matter compiler to create ammunition on the fly." She shrugged. "Well, you can make them considerably more effective." Admiral Zorfa's wings were trembling. You gave children weapons capable of molecular disassembly?" "Oh, heavens no," Dr. Vasquez laughed. "The standard versions are completely harmless. This is a custom job. We only bring out the modified versions for special occasions." She gestured toward the range, where targets 5 through 10 still waited in the distance. These represented the ultimate in defensive technology. Shields, energy barriers, temporal displacement fields, quantum uncertainty generators. The kind of defenses that protected the Alliance's most vital installations. "Shall we continue?" she asked politely. From the observation deck came a sound like the collective gulp of 24 alien throats. "Perhaps," said Vex 9 carefully, "we should discuss the terms of humanity's membership in the Galactic Defense Council." Dr. Vasquez smiled and lowered her weapon. An excellent suggestion, Commander. I have the paperwork right here. As she reached for her diplomatic case, every being in the observation deck took an involuntary step backward. After all, if this was what humans considered a children's toy, what might they keep in their briefcases? The collective intake of breath from the observation deck was audible even through the reinforced transparisteel. Dr. Maya Vasquez paused, her hand hovering over her diplomatic case, and looked up with the expression of someone who had just realized she might have accidentally stepped on a particularly delicate flower. "Oh dear," she said, genuine concern coloring her voice. "I seem to have made everyone nervous. It's just a briefcase, gentlemen. Standard diplomatic equipment." "Standard for humans," muttered General Crox, his breathing apparatus working overtime. "Well, yes," Dr. Vasquez admitted with a slight smile. "I suppose that's true." She opened the case with deliberate slowness, revealing what appeared to be perfectly ordinary documents, a few data pads, and what looked suspiciously like a packed lunch. Several delegates visibly relaxed. "See," she said cheerfully. "Just boring old paperwork. Though I should mention that the sandwich is peanut butter and jelly. I hope no one here has a severe allergic reaction to legumes?" The silence that followed this innocent question was profound. In a galaxy where most species had extensive lists of foods that could kill them, the casual mention of potentially lethal human cuisine was not reassuring. Commander Vex 9 cleared his throat, which produced a sound like gravel in a mixing bowl. "Perhaps we should, that is, maybe we ought to discuss your application in more detail." "Wonderful." Dr. Vasquez pulled out a tablet and stylus. "Let's start with the standard questionnaire, shall we? Question 1. What is your species' primary method of conflict resolution?" "Well," Admiral Zorf began, his wings rustling nervously, "we typically begin with diplomatic negotiations, followed by economic sanctions if necessary, and finally, military action," Dr. Vasquez finished helpfully. "Yes, that's quite standard. For humans, we usually try talking first, then yelling, then passive-aggressive notes, and finally we break out the really dangerous stuff." "The really dangerous stuff?" Captain Yix asked, though he seemed to immediately regret the question. "Oh yes. Last week, my neighbor's dog kept barking at night, so I left a strongly worded letter in their mailbox. Solved the problem completely." The aliens exchanged glances. If humans considered strongly worded letters to be dangerous weapons, what did that say about their capacity for actual warfare? Question 2, Dr. Vasquez continued, apparently oblivious to the growing tension. "What is your species' most advanced defensive technology?" This question sparked a bit of pride among the assembled delegates. Vex 9 straightened his carapace. "The Kethvarian phase shield can deflect energy weapons up to 10 terawatts while maintaining complete spatial coherence. The Mantis cluster's probability distortion field," buzzed Admiral Zorf, "can redirect incoming projectiles into alternate dimensions." "Very impressive," Dr. Vasquez nodded approvingly. "Humans mostly rely on really good insurance policies and the hope that our enemies will be reasonable. More uncomfortable shifting from the observation deck." Question 3. Describe your species' approach to technological development. This time, General Crox spoke up with obvious pride. "The Bulboid Republic has spent the last 3 centuries perfecting our plasma manipulation technology. Each advancement is carefully tested, thoroughly documented, and gradually implemented across our fleet. The Thraxian Empire," added Captain Yix, "follows a strict protocol of 1,000-year development cycles. Every piece of equipment is tested for a minimum of 50 standard years before deployment." Dr. Vasquez looked thoughtful. "That sounds very sensible and responsible. Humans tend to take a slightly different approach. We usually have an idea on Monday, build a prototype on Tuesday, test it on Wednesday, and if it doesn't kill anyone, we mass-produce it by Friday." "And if it does kill someone?" Range Master Thek asked with horrified fascination. "Well, then we add warning labels and sell it anyway." The observation deck fell silent again. This was a pattern that was becoming uncomfortably familiar. Dr. Vasquez glanced at her notes. Actually, that reminds me. I probably should have mentioned earlier that the Nerf gun comes with several important safety warnings. Let me see. She pulled out what appeared to be a manual. Do not aim at faces. Do not use in enclosed spaces without proper ventilation. Do not operate near black holes. Do not use while under the influence of temporal paradoxes. And she flipped a page. Do not attempt to use ammunition manufactured before the year 2387, as early production runs may contain trace amounts of antimatter. Antimatter? Vex9's voice cracked like a teenager going through molt. In a children's toy? Oh, just trace amounts, Dr. Vasquez assured him. Barely enough to level a city block. She looked up to find every delegate in the observation deck pressed against the far wall. Is everyone all right? You all look a bit pale. Well, those of you who have pigmentation that can change color, anyway. Dr. Vasquez, Admiral Zorf said carefully, perhaps you could explain exactly how humans developed this weapon. Oh, it's quite a fun story, she said, settling back in her chair with obvious enthusiasm. It all started when little Tommy Henderson complained that his Nerf gun wasn't powerful enough to hit his sister from across the playground. And instead of telling him that was the point, Vex9 said slowly, someone decided to improve it? Well, his father was Dr. Marcus Henderson, our head of applied physics at the Titan Research Station. And you know how it is with parents and their children. He wanted to make Tommy happy. General Crocs was making small whimpering sounds. So Dr. Henderson made a few small modifications. Added a quantum flux capacitor to increase muzzle velocity. Installed a matter compiler to create custom ammunition. Upgraded the targeting system with some basic AI. Basic AI? Captain Yix squeaked. Oh yes. Nothing too sophisticated. The gun can only hold conversations in 12 languages and compose poetry in 7 more. Tommy was quite pleased with the haiku function. Dr. Vasquez pulled out the Nerf gun again, and despite being across the range from the observation deck, every delegate took another step backward. Would you like to hear one? She asked brightly. The gun composed this one yesterday. Foam dart flies so true, molecular bonds breaking free, target says goodbye. The gun writes poetry about destroying things. Range Master Thek's voice was barely audible. All the best weapons do, Dr. Vasquez replied matter-of-factly. It's considered quite rude to obliterate someone without at least a limerick. Basic etiquette, really. She noticed the continued silence and looked concerned. Oh dear. I hope I haven't given you the wrong impression about humanity. We're really quite peaceful. It's just that our definition of peaceful might be a bit different from yours. How so? Vex9 managed to ask. Well, we believe in peace through superior firepower. And also through superior poetry. Nothing deters aggression quite like a well-crafted sonnet about the futility of existence. Admiral Zorf was now openly hyperventilating, his wings creating a sound like a malfunctioning air recycler. Dr. Vasquez, he wheezed, what exactly would humanity bring to the Galactic Defense Council? She brightened considerably. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Humans have a long and proud tradition of making things that probably shouldn't exist. We've weaponized everything from sound waves to strongly worded emails. We've turned children's toys into instruments of mass destruction. We've even figured out how to make bureaucracy lethal. Bureaucracy? General Crocs asked in a voice filled with dread. Oh yes. Have you ever tried to file a complaint with the Human Colonial Administration? The paperwork alone has been known to cause complete nervous breakdowns in species with advanced cognitive abilities. We once ended a war by sending the enemy our standard tax forms. They surrendered within hours. Dr. Vasquez stood up and walked to the observation window, still carrying her Nerf gun with casual indifference. But our greatest strength, she continued, is our ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems. Take this demonstration, for example. You wanted to see our weapons capability, but your standard testing protocol was designed for conventional armaments. So we brought something unconventional. She gestured toward the remaining targets on the range. Target 5 has temporal shielding that prevents it from being affected by weapons that haven't been invented yet. Target 6 exists in a state of quantum superposition, making it impossible to hit and unhit simultaneously. Target 7 is protected by a field that reverses causality, ensuring that any weapon fired at it was never actually created. The delegates were listening with the rapt attention of beings watching their own species' extinction being planned. And yet, Dr. Vasquez said softly, I'm confident that this little toy gun could handle all of them. Because humans don't just think outside the box. We take the box apart, turn it inside out, fill it with explosives, and then use it to build a better box. She raised the Nerf gun and pointed it at Target 5. No! Vex 9 shouted. Don't! Please! Dr. Vasquez paused, looking genuinely confused. But you wanted a complete demonstration. We've seen enough. Admiral Zorfa's wings were beating so fast they were creating a small whirlwind. More than enough. Are you certain? I haven't even shown you the rapid-fire mode yet. Or the seeking ammunition. Or the setting that allows the darts to travel through alternate dimensions to bypass conventional defenses. We're certain. Captain Yix practically screamed. Doctor. Vasquez lowered the weapon with a slight shrug. Well, if you're sure. I suppose we can discuss membership terms then. She walked back to the conference area and pulled out another document from her briefcase. The delegates watched this action with the same level of concern they might reserve for someone handling unstable plutonium. Standard membership includes access to all alliance databases, mutual defense agreements, and trade partnerships, she read. In return, humanity offers our unique expertise in applied impossibility. Applied impossibility? Range Master Thek asked weakly. Making things work that shouldn't work. Solving problems that can't be solved. Turning children's toys into planet killers. She looked up with a bright smile. It's really what we do best. General Crox had given up on breathing normally and was now completely dependent on his mechanical apparatus. And if we were to decline humanity's application? Dr. Vasquez looked hurt. Oh, that would be unfortunate. Humans don't handle rejection very well. We tend to get creative when we're upset. Creative how? Vex 9 asked, though he clearly didn't want to know the answer. Well, the last species that rejected our diplomatic overtures found their entire homeworld replaced with a strongly worded hologram. We felt it made our point quite effectively. You replaced a planet with a hologram? Oh, the planet's still there, Dr. Vasquez assured them. It just exists in a parallel dimension now. We send them postcards occasionally to let them know we're thinking of them. She pulled out her stylus again. But I'm sure that won't be necessary here. You all seem like very reasonable beings. The observation deck was now completely silent except for the sound of various alien respiratory systems working overtime. Finally, Commander Vex 9 spoke, his voice hollow with defeat. Dr. Vasquez, what would humanity's membership requirements be? Oh, nothing too demanding, she said cheerfully. Standard council chamber seating, voting rights, access to the commissary, and perhaps a small testing facility where we can continue our research into recreational weaponry. Recreational weaponry? Well, the Nerf gun is just the beginning. Wait until you see what we've done with water balloons. Admiral Zorf made a sound like a dying star. But that's for later, Dr. Vasquez continued. For now, shall we sign the membership agreement? She produced a simple document and placed it on the table. To the assembled delegates, it looked like a death warrant for galactic civilization as they knew it. One by one, with the resigned air of beings accepting their fate, they signed. Dr. Vasquez beamed as she collected the completed paperwork. Wonderful. Welcome to the partnership, everyone. I think this is going to be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. She packed up her briefcase, being careful to handle the sandwich with appropriate caution, and headed toward the exit. Oh, one more thing, she called over her shoulder as she reached the door. I probably should mention that next week, my colleague Dr. Peterson will be demonstrating our advances in playground equipment modification. You might want to evacuate any nearby systems before he arrives with his enhanced jungle gym. The door slid shut behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the observation deck in stunned silence. Finally, Captain Yick spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What have we done? Commander Vex 9 looked at the signed membership agreement, then at the space where 3 impossible targets used to exist, then at the Nerf dart still lying harmlessly at the base of Target 1. I think, he said slowly, we just learned why humans call it a toy gun. Because to them, this probably is recreational equipment. The silence stretched on as each delegate contemplated a universe where humanity's children's toys could rewrite the laws of physics. Somewhere in the distance, the soft sound of Dr. Vasquez humming a cheerful tune echoed through the corridors, gradually fading as she made her way to the shuttle bay, and in that fading melody, the future of galactic civilization hung in the balance, suspended somewhere between absolute terror and the faint, desperate hope that humanity might consider the rest of the galaxy worthy of their protection rather than their creative attention. After all, if this was what they did for fun, what might they do if someone actually made them angry? Nobody in the observation deck wanted to find out.